everyone, I'm Miriam and this is Writer's Block with Miriam. As you know, those of you who've been subscribing, this show isn't strictly about texts. We have people on who work with texts on a daily basis, who make that part of their life, part of their career, and they're on to talk a little bit about themselves as well. This week's guest is very exciting for me because in my 20s, during the 1980s, I thought this woman was just phenomenal. I thought she was so unusual. There was nobody like her on television, nobody like her on stage. Wonderful stage presence. And I'm delighted today to be able to invite onto the show Dillie Keane. Dillie Keane, songwriter, pianist, comedienne, you name it, producer, techie. She's not afraid to go there. She is truly a Renaissance woman, and I am so, so delighted to welcome her to Writer's Block. Take it away, Dillie. Hello, everybody. It's Miriam here from Writer's Block with Miriam, and I'm absolutely delighted to have with me today Dillie Keane. In fact, Louise Miriam Keane, if I've got that right.
You have.
And it took a moment to realize that it's somebody else here with another name like mine. I don't meet too many Miriams.
No, my mother was Miriam.
She was Miriam, was she?
Yeah, because she was born in good Catholic Ireland.
Of course.
She wasn't allowed to be christened Miriam. She was Mary on her. She was christened Mary, known as Miriam.
Oh my goodness! Well, that's amazing. Now I've never heard of that before.
That's what was on her birth certificate.
Oh,
Mary, known as Miriam.
How amazing is that? Now, Dillie, as we've come to know her, is one of the most outstanding singers, songwriter, comedians in the British Isles and internationally renowned. There are singers such as Bette Midler, Camille O'Sullivan, people who have taken her songs and recorded them. She has an ability to throw herself into work, productions, technology. That is just fantastic. She's a Renaissance woman. I think she's marvelous. In my 20s, I followed her. She hit the stratosphere with Fascinating Aida. And we've got her here with us today. So Dillie, you're very welcome to the program. And I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you very much.
So excited to talk to you. First of all, how are you in this?
I'm so excited to talk to anybody. I've put makeup on.
I know, this is awful, isn't it? Just for posterity's sake, we are filming during COVID-19. We're starting the second 6 months, unfortunately. How have you been through all of this, Dillie?
All right, pottering on. I live on a farm in a nice village.
Oh,
I have nothing to complain about, apart from the fact that I'm sad. I'm sad for my business. The thing I'm saddest of all about is not about, I don't miss performing. I miss seeing stuff.
Yes.
That's my soul food. And
yes.
I've seen 2 shows since lockdown. One because I put one on. I put a friend of mine on, a wonderful singer called Barb Younger. If you haven't discovered her yet, you should. She came and did a concert in the garden of my local pub, and I was a poacher turned gamekeeper because I became a producer for the night. And then another night I went to see somebody singing Joni Mitchell, and I don't even care that much for Joni Mitchell.
Just but you went. You went,
and
I know.
I'm going to see another singer next month, this month, called Christine Boville, and I'm inordinately excited about that because she is remarkable, another great singer. So I'm excited. So it'll be 3 this year.
And how are they working that? So it's social distancing, maybe 50 people to, or even less, I'm sure, even less perhaps to.
Yes, somehow it seems easier. There's a venue in London called Crazy Coq's, which is all little tables, and it's easier there because basically you just take a few tables out. Whereas if you've got rows of seats, you really have to space people out, alternate rows, and I think that's very hard because then you really do reduce the audience to a third. Yes,
absolutely. And I remember a mutual friend of ours, Kate O'Toole, I was having a conversation with her about this. Now, this is back 3 months ago. And we were talking about amphitheatres. Bring back amphitheatres.
Yes,
outdoor
indeed.
theatres.
We'll certainly have to do that. I mean, because I live in a farm, and farming is what's a polite word I'm looking for, fact. It's probably going to be fact in this country. And I just said to him, I said, why don't we put a stage up with a cover?
Yes.
A little mini festival.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Lots of hay stacks here, there, everywhere. Make sure we get our social distancing in with something.
Bring your own chair. Bring your own deck chairs.
Absolutely, yeah, have picnics. You've got livestock. Did you say that again, Dillie?
Or rent a deck chair from us.
Or rent a deck chair.
So you pay to get into the field and rent a deck chair.
Exactly. I was looking at your website lately, and I saw you lost a beautiful mare and foal, you were saying on one of your videos. Oh my God, I love horses.
Yeah, well, we've got quite a few on the farm. We've got one running today at 3:30.
No way.
Banger on D, yes. Yes.
Oh my God.
I might have to put it on in the background.
Oh my gosh. Oh yes, yeah. Well, you can't miss that. Now, you have had this extraordinary career, and you continue to have this amazing run with a satirical music group, for anyone who's not aware, called Fascinating AIDA. And you were, well, basically, weren't you the founder member?
I was, yes. I was.
Yes. Now, a little bit like, for anyone watching abroad, a little bit like Manhattan Transfer, in the sense that the faces keep changing, but the group is still the same. You never change, of course. You are still the most talented linchpin. And you have, again, back as far as, I suppose, 1984, you've got Adele Anderson, who works with you too. I hadn't realized for many years that Adele was such a brilliant lyricist.
Oh yeah, no, Adele is under-recognized for her contributions to the song. I mean,
isn't she?
Yeah, she really is. And everybody says I write it all. I write a lot of it. I write about 25%. Yes. But 25% is a serious input. And Liza Pullman has grown into a very good contributor.
Hasn't she just? Yeah. I love her.
I love her because I think the group works at its best when it's completely collegiate. And right, I'm the head writer, I'm the overall editor. That's fine. But sharing the kind of the job and the honors and the fun of writing together makes it so much. It means that the others have a major stake in the show.
Yes. They do.
We're all very decided, we're quite opinionated. And that's why we've always worked with a director.
Yes, and even though the group took breaks along the way, didn't you? You've taken a couple of breaks that were extended breaks and then got back together again. The chances of groups actually getting back together again is quite low,
Well, the problem, of course, is that the Sopranos in the past have always felt that a better career awaits them.
Yes.
That the West End and Broadway are calling, and a non-stop schlep around the provinces is not what they want to do, and you have to accept it. And so, and finding that third member is very, very difficult.
It's very difficult because you've gone through a couple of people over the years, haven't you?
Yeah, and you lose heart.
Yes.
But it's very unfashionable to quote Kipling, but I do quote Kipling to myself all the time. That line from If you can see the things you gave your life to broken, then stoop to build them up with worn out tools. So I go get your worn out tools out, Keane. Go on, start again.
Keep going.
And so when I had no thought of starting Fascinating AIDA again in 1989, Denise Warmby left.
Yes.
Didn't want to do it again. Yes. And I just thought, well, I just can't face it. We'd done 6 years of Lizzie Richardson had left, who I start was my great friend. Marilyn had left twice. We had a replacement called Glenda who wasn't right. We'd Denise Warmby. We auditioned the world in between. Yes. And you couldn't get people to commit because basically we have to plan a year in advance.
Yes. And they'd have families perhaps.
No, but what happens if I get offered?
Oh, yes. So did you find that the reasons were more career centered rather than family centered for some of the way? I'm just thinking of women and the sorts of demands that are making.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
Yes. Isn't
Always.
it extraordinary?
There was always a better career waiting.
Yeah.
And you have to, the door has to be open, so you can't make people join a prison. So if people become unhappy, the only thing to do is to disband that trio. And then I met Izzy Van Randwyck in 1993, and I just thought, you are something else. You'd be fabulous. And I asked her if she fancied joining. She was with us for 5 years, 4.5 of which were great fun and very happy, and 6 months of which were miserable because she suddenly decided she was imprisoned by the group and didn't want to do it anymore. So, made life difficult for herself and for us. And we just, then you think, oh, well, let's give up.
Yeah, and I think that can happen to people. But what do you feel now, just as a professional performer, how do you feel the attitude needs to be? I mean, everyone who steps on a stage knows that they have to develop themselves. Some may be soloists, some may not be. But if you commit to a group, what do you feel that you need to bring to that? Commitment?
Commitment and good humor.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with you. Yeah.
And to be able to say honestly, listen, I'm not going to, I don't want to do this much longer. I said I'd do the tour. Let's have fun while we do it, rather than the terrible regret of saying I'll do the tour and then making life miserable for everybody.
Yes.
You suddenly decided you don't do it.
Yeah.
Look, if you've contracted to do something, do it with a good grace.
And now the chemistry between, as you say, Lisa Pullman, Adele Anderson, and yourselves at the moment, that works amazingly well. It's just fantastic. And they all seem to have an input into the writing to some extent too. I would say, just looking at you all, you seem to all, it marries up terribly well,
Well, Lisa, when she joined the group, it just felt different.
Yes.
Liza always says it's because we're all Gemini.
Are you?
So there's 6 of us on stage. And she says that's what it is, but I don't know whether that has anything to do with it. But, she is a mensch.
Yeah.
There's only one word for it. She's a mensch. And she's a good egg. She says what she feels. She loves the work. She puts her heart and soul into it. And when she had to stop for personal reasons, we had to go on because it had suddenly gone mad with the cheap flights and everything. And I just sat her down and said, Liza, I've been waiting for this moment for a long, long, long time. And I have always given way to sopranos. And you're the one I love. I love you the best by far. But I'm not going to stop for you. What I promise I will do is keep the job open.
Yes.
And I promise that whoever we get to replace you is only a temporary replacement and not a permanent replacement.
Yes. She must have valued that. She must have valued that coming from you.
Well, I'd been very honest with her when we auditioned her, and I'd sort of said, look, there are certain things going on, and this is what I don't know why. I just trusted her. Yes. That sixth sense that somebody is a mensch and isn't going to crap on you at some stage, and she has just repaid that by spades. I owe Liza an awful lot.
You can actually nearly see it, Dillie. You can nearly see it in the way that the three of you work together. You can almost see that. Can I take you back just a little bit? Just going back to your teenage years. Did you find that you were drawn more to musicianship or singing? Did you ever see this on the horizon for yourself?
Looking back, I obviously had again towards this sort of thing because that's what as a kid I would sing. When I was 12, I was doing "I'm just an old-fashioned girl with an old." not sophisticated, I'm the woman, and whatever it is. And I was singing Eartha Kitt songs and Noel Coward songs.
Yes.
And then I discovered Tom Lehrer, and I loved that. I mean, I thought I would have the talent to write the songs myself. I was writing songs. They were idiotic, but fun. And then it took a long time to have the confidence to write the songs, and then they suddenly started pouring out.
And was the school, was it a boarding school? It was that you went to when you were very young. I think it was a Roman Catholic Woldingham school.
Yeah.
Was it, would it have been a choir school? Did it encourage music at all? Or?
First, I went to 2 convents. The first convent I went to...
God help you.
I know. I only went to the 2
So did I.
They took an intake of new girls, even though they knew the school was closing down. They were venal and arseholes. But it was a very, very musical school, and I sang, and I was in every single singing group. And there was one singing group called Schola, and I was the first girl who was ever accepted age 12. It was for the girls who were 16 and above, because that's all I wanted to do was sing. And I had a pretty voice in those days.
It was there very early, very early.
And then school closed down, and I was sent off to a sister convent, another Sacred Heart convent, which wasn't very musical at all, which meant that I was by far and away the most musical kid in the school. And so I did music all the time that I could. And there was a very good drama teacher there, which was terrific as well, called Diana Budd. Taught me so much.
Isn't it strange? These people stay in your head. They stay in your head.
I don't think she taught me that much, really, but she did teach me to stand on the stage in the correct position.
And did you have a fear of audiences at any stage when you were, did you have to break through any barriers in your teens to make yourself get up and do it? Or
No, not on stage. I hated the bit of having to sit at the piano in our sitting room and play the piano for my parents' friends.
Oh, yes. They're the scariest audiences, I find. 10 people, 6 people, and put me in front of a large group and I'm off. But they're the hard ones.
I didn't mind the pub. When we went on I went on holiday with my friends. I used to play Hard Hearted Hannah and Your Feet's Too Big and sort of like, slightly wacky songs that you wouldn't expect a 16-year-old girl in 1960.
Oh, yes, to be singing then. Of course. So at what point then did you take it seriously? Did you say, right, okay, this is the profession for me. I'm going to be on stage.
Well, I wanted to do it when I left school, but my parents wouldn't hear of me going to drama school.
So when you went to Trinity in Dublin?
Yeah, that was my compromise, so that I could join players, really, and put a stretch of water between me and my mother.
Yeah. And then you went to Lambda. In the end, you got your way.
My life began.
How did you find that? The London Academy of Dramatic Art.
Down the road, and there it was. I loved it.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, my Lambda year, and we have started meeting at least 3-4 times a year. And it's been a sort of wonderful succor to us. We're not all there, but it's a fairly big group of us is still in touch.
Yes.
And at least half the group. 2 sadly have already died.
I know, that's very difficult. Yeah, when you find that's happened, and sometimes if they've passed away young, you're so grateful for what you've got and that you've used it.
I know. But the rest of us all get together. It was the best, I would not say the best years of my life, but I'd like to think every year has something marvelous, but they were wonderful years, and I'm so glad I went. It's the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of settled down. I was like a kind of loose cannon before that, and all I wanted to do was go backstage and stand in the wings and wait for my moment to go on, or just sweep the stage in between shows.
And what was it about the course or about the group that actually settled you, do you think? What can you pin it down to anything? Was it just the environment, or the fact that you'd now chosen the role finally?
Well, because I was doing what I'd always wanted to do.
I always wanted to do this.
I lived around the theatre, around the corner from a theatre called the King's Theatre, Southsea, and I haunted the stage door, and I was allowed to get. We were allowed to work. I haunted it with my autograph book, of course, and I think a lot of people were very puzzled because they'd come out and they'd be stagehands, and I'd say, "Can I have your autograph?" I hadn't seen the show.
Imagine. I
was just mad about it. And anyway, when I was 14, I went to the manager and said, "I'm 14 and I'm allowed to work now. Can I have a job, holiday job, please?"
Yes.
And so I did everything in that theatre. And I was in the box office and I ran the bars.
The beginnings of Dillie the producer.
Yes.
You know what front of house was like.
Yeah.
Backstage, everything.
Old programs.
Yes.
And then eventually worked backstage. I was ASM.
Yes.
Remember the day they let me work backstage, I ran home and I bounced up and down on my mother's bed and went, "I'm working backstage! I'm working backstage!" Why she didn't know that made me happy, I have no idea.
Well, obviously you had a thirst for learning. You obviously have that kind of brain. As I say, you're very techie now. It's in its own way, it kind of follows you, doesn't it? Do you feel sometimes that you need to learn everything around whatever it is you're interested in?
No, I think I know when to stop.
Right. And would that be mainly for, like, would that extend to the running of the farm and things like that you'd
Oh no, I don't interfere with
music.
No, I occasionally ask questions, etc. But that's John's area, my partner, and and I'll ask questions about the horses and all that. But no, I don't need to know everything. I'm interested in the breeding of the horses because that John is terrific on that subject, and I do love them, but I don't have any talent for it. I know that because I have to say, "Which one's that?" And I've been looking at these horses for 5 years or 7 years, whatever, and I still don't recognise them.
Their markings are important.
I know which one they are by which stable they're in.
Oh, very good.
I mean, that's hopeless. So there's no real point in me trying to do something I'm not good at.
Well, I suppose he's probably relieved because you're so talented in so many other areas. I suppose you've got to leave him something, Dillie, don't you?
No, I think he's very talented. And he's one of the, he's a very clever man.
And we need one of those behind us as well. I've got a very clever one as well. Too clever at times. When I look at the amount of nominations that have followed you now, I mean, Fascinating AIDA aside, and it's always difficult to push it aside because it is just such a fantastic creation in its own right. You in your own right, you have Hello Dillie, which is the show that has traveled more recently with us. You have your own shows. You have your writing for the Stage magazine, which
I haven't done for quite a long time.
Yeah, for quite some time. But I remember periodically I used to pop up on it myself, and I don't read your articles. And also you used to write for newspapers, and you published your own books. The writing process, be it for the songs that you're writing together, the writing process, how does that work for you? How big a part of your professional life is writing? And either writing scores, arrangements, or the shows themselves?
As a kid, I had a typewriter, which was my great uncle's Olivetti, and I loved that thing. I loved typing. I loved writing, and I was always writing. My mother was convinced I would be a writer.
Oh.
I think what she thought was that I would write. I might write I don't know, a gardening column or something nice like that. Like
Not a novel then. She wasn't thinking of, oh, this is the Shanachie coming out, a Kerry Shanachie, not a Mayo one.
No. My mother, my mother never spoke any Irish, in spite of being from Kerry. Hopeless. No, my parents are really not very into Irish culture. I think they moved to England and sort of left all that behind, really, and sort of assimilated.
Yes. Your father was a doctor, wasn't he?
He was, yes.
Was he a GP?
A GP, yeah.
And did you find that when you did, I've often wondered whether having a parent who's a doctor makes you kind of more likely to have, you know, aches, pains that could possibly be cancer or something like that, or whether you are blasé about that then.
My siblings were very healthy. I was fantastically sickly as a child, and I spent a lot of time on my own in bed for months on end. And my mother said she always remembered my poor bottom was like a pin cushion from all the those really big penicillin needles.
Oh, really?
My father had to come in and inject me twice a day, and apparently I just used to sort of go, "Oh, hello, Dad," and I'd roll over and lift up my thing and go and pull my pajama bottoms down, and he'd say, "Is it that side today?" I'm like, "Yeah, left in the morning and right in the evening."
Oh my goodness! And
I was a very sick child, and I spent time in a lot of time in hospital, and I was taken up to Greater Ormond Street at one stage, and I was a very sickly kid.
And how many years did this go on for, Dillie?
I suppose until I was about 22.
Really?
22, yeah, 22.
Oh my goodness!
From time to time, you
Yes.
know. And also, when I was at university, I used to push myself, and I didn't get enough sleep, and I partied too much, and there was nothing embarrassing, but just, just partying.
Every so often, your system would just collapse on you and just need to stop. Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah, but
there's so much.
I caught everything, and I got strange things. It was actually, I went to Lambda, I got happy, and I got healthy.
Oh, well, that it makes an awful lot of sense. And what you're describing, I think it's not uncommon amongst actors and performers.
Yeah,
but they're very, very sensitive types, and very often, if your body responds to stress or responds to not being a toxic environment, it'll be an actor or a singer who'll really feel that and can go under. I've seen it many times, and in some respects it's happened to me in my life too. But if you're in the right place and things are going well, you instantly respond.
Yeah.
And it just, but look at the amount of awards that followed you then in your career after that. How many times have you been nominated for a Perrier Award? Oh my goodness, so many different awards that have come your way. Olivier nominations.
I'll never win though.
But look at the amount of nominations.
The only one I've ever won was one that was, that we've won, there are two. There was one was City Limits Award. And that apparently really annoyed City Limits because they thought we were terribly upper-class English girls. Oh, why? One was Welsh, one was Irish, and one was transsexual. I'm a transgender person. I mean, we were really not exactly public school girls, but there we are. We never
perception, isn't it? It's your reach. That's the reach that you have.
It's the audience that voted us the top cabaret out for London. And then the other one, which I won, which was the Moors Comedy Festival in Germany. But they'd awarded it before I'd got there, before I'd even done the show, which says more about German efficiency than it says about my show.
Yes, it does. Very good. So typical. So when it comes to writing shows then, how does that work for you? If you come up with a new concept for a show, what are we looking at? 3 months, 6 months?
Anything as big as a concept. I just have ideas for songs. I'll say we need to write a song about. And now we plan. We write songs about, you know, we don't wait for inspiration to strike, because then we'd never write anything. But we look at the subjects and we say, for instance, we had a lot of teachers kept coming up and saying, when are you going to write a song about Ofsted? Or about teachers? So we wrote a song about, I said, we really ought to do this. Because we didn't have any inspiration, we spent about a week researching it, reading blogs of teachers, looking at teachers' reports, looking at stuff that was written about Ofsted in reputable newspapers, and talking to teachers themselves and saying, what happens then? Okay. So then we could go away and write the song, and then you sort of go, that was one of the rare ones where we did a parody.
It was very good. I remember when that came out, I was actually teaching in a sixth form college in Canterbury.
Oh, yeah.
So apt, because they were coming in on a regular basis often.
And that's when we wrote the parody of a policeman's knot is not a happy one. A teacher's lot is not a happy one.
Absolutely.
Just, you know, sometimes, just occasionally, a parody is worth writing. And I only ever choose Gilbert and Sullivan because they're the masters.
They're the masters, absolutely. Oh my gosh, they are. They are. But even with songs like the health and safety song, I mean, it worked on this side of the water too, because the HSE, our NHS, you know, the health and safety executive, and you were able to work that in so well.
Yeah.
Excellent. So when it comes to some of the songs that you, I mean, for example, I'm sure Cheap Flights was a gear change in more recent years, and that it must have propelled Fascinating AIDA, and not just yourself, but the group forward very quickly. And you seem to have got a handle on technology very much at that time. It seemed to me that you were really able to push that on social media. You seem to come to grips with that side of things then.
Well, we were the first act I know of to have had a website. I just kept saying, we've got to have a website. And I went, well, what's it for?
That's back even further.
It's a shop window in the sky. Just think of it like that. It's a shop window. And we had a blog before anybody did. We had what we called a web diary.
Yes, that's what they used to call them then. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And I didn't know of anybody who else was doing it. And it was terribly funny. We used to write it as we went along in the van. And there was some very, very funny stuff on it. I think our old webmaster has all the old scripts. They were a hoot. And then, so no, I've always been technology queen. And I'm quite good on technology. You know, for instance, if I write the songs on, I write them on Sibelius, which is a songwriting software.
Yes.
Or music writing software. I'm a bit slow on it because I don't do it that often. But I am, you know, so, and I did something on iMovie the other day, and I learned how to put photographs in, which made it great fun. And I've learned, you know, I mean, I'm not talking, you know, genius stuff, but I'm 68 and I'm not supposed to be good at it at my age. And I take great pride in the fact that I'm quite good.
You're quite good at it, yeah. And I mean, the thing is, so long as you're able to operate it for your needs and then come up with ideas, that just inspires you to do other things as well. I mean, I'm pretty much the same with what I'm doing here. I didn't know a thing about editing these shows or anything like that, but I had to do it. Suddenly you have to do it.
Yes, you do.
And when you have to do it, you're suddenly able, you know.
You get a lot better at it. And I get slightly short-tempered with people of my age who say, oh, well, I don't use Zoom. It's a bit complicated. Oh, get over it. Get a life. Get over it.
I know.
Don't be silly.
I know. Now, your acting ability, your acting talent. I mean, you've been in so many different shows. You've been involved with Charlie's Aunt, The Plough and the Stars, Vagina Monologues, all these different shows that, you know, would be independent, of course, of the other things that you're doing. Do you try to cast the net wide? Do you try to keep your hand in with other productions? Are you open to people asking you to be in, straight dramatic roles?
Yeah. Yes.
So you don't have, you don't focus specifically or try to focus specifically on cabaret. You will look at whatever comes through. As
the problem with cabaret is its timeline doesn't work really with straight theatre. So
no.
I've often had to turn stuff down.
Yes.
And so people stop asking you because cabaret is you plan at least 6 to 9 months in advance, not a year. And if I've spent a long time putting a new show together, new songs and things like that, I want to exploit that and to take it around as far a reach as I can, whether it's if it's just the UK and Ireland, or if it's also New York and God knows Berlin.
So yes, because this is the thing. I mean, you've taken your shows to New York, as I say, and Off-Broadway. You've taken them to the Sydney Opera House in Australia. It's apart from London, the West End. Do you like to be hands-on organizing that yourself? Are you happy to hand over to agents?
I've always had a manager.
You've always had a manager who'll do it for you.
Had a director. I've been less easy with agents, with producers, slightly interfering and saying, no, we're not going to stay there. No, I don't like that theatre. I'm much easier about it now because I've got producers I trust.
Yes.
And I've had producers I trust for quite a few years. They're called David and John. And before that, I had a lovely producer called Edward Snape, and I adored him. And I adore David and John. They're fantastic. They're also great friends of mine, as was Edward. And so I've been very, very, very lucky.
And how about musical directors? Do you prefer to stay in that role yourself, or are you happy to hand over to? I noticed that you've worked quite a bit with Michael Rulston.
Yeah, he's terrific. Yeah, he's terrific,
isn't he?
And he's just joined us. Well, I tried to cross my legs and I forgot. Too uncomfortable.
Oh, but he's an outstanding singer, musician, very MD. Yeah. So do you think that you're going to be working with him on a more regular basis into the future?
Yeah, we're planning to. Well, the thing was that we had put together quite a newish show. Fascinating AIDA is only ever a newish show because we've got such a big back catalogue that people get antsy with us if we don't perform some of the oldies.
Exactly.
To be honest with you, the tap that writes the new stuff it works a little slower these days. Partly because we don't get together enough, partly because we take longer now to write a song, and I think that is partly because we know what we're doing.
Yes.
And we know whether it'll work or not. And even then we can get it horribly wrong. We wrote what we thought was the most brilliant song in the world about Bitcoin.
Oh yes, and of course, look what happened to Bitcoin.
Oh no, nobody understood it.
Nobody understood it, yeah. Nobody
understood it. At least I did while I was writing the song.
Yeah, but other people didn't pick up on it, so you would have researched it through and through, got the song right, and really just did take off of people's imaginations.
We like to pick a big subject.
Yes.
When I get slightly...
Well, the Brexit song is just fantastic, isn't it? I mean, it really just hit the button.
Yeah, well, we've written a So Sorry Ireland version.
Yes. You'll have to do that.
Yeah. Well, that's on the new album.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's just gone to be mastered. So we've been a bit slow.
Oh, so is that your 12th album then? Or your 11th?
I don't think it's that many, is it? 10th, 9th?
I was looking at where was it now that, so you've got 5 DVDs out.
Yeah.
5 DVDs, so 2 books, 5 DVDs, and on the last count that I had to look there, it was 11 albums.
Gosh.
It's just, you wouldn't want to be. That is just amazing though, isn't it? So, I mean, and so that will be out when?
Not bad for an old girl, I suppose.
Very good.
I don't know when, but I hope before Christmas.
Absolutely, before Christmas. Yeah. And is there a working title for it, or have you got a full title on it?
I don't know. Can't
Well,
remember.
we'll soon find out once it's all sorted. Once it's all sorted. So
We might call it the pre-COVID show.
the pre-COVID show would be brilliant for it. So if we do manage to get ourselves out of this impossible situation, which I feel is going to take 3 years, probably 3 years, looking at the way Spanish flu affected certainly Ireland anyway, it was 3 years before Dublin was clear of it. If we do manage...
My grandmother died of it,
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Which side of the family? Maternal?
My mother's family. I mean, I've often felt that was why Mummy was such a tricky customer. She was 18 months or thereabouts when she lost her mother, and that's a terrible, terrible, damaging time to lose a mother.
Oh, no.
It's quite well documented, psychiatrically, that it is a huge loss.
Yes.
Died. She'd had 4 children, and she was told not to have a 5th by the doctor. But being a good Catholic woman,
I know.
she had a 5th, and the child was born dead.
Oh.
She was alone in the house.
Oh.
And then she caught the flu, and and she was, I think, irreparably weakened by the child.
Yes.
And then died of the flu. And she was the musical one. She was the one.
Oh.
She apparently, I met a cousin of Mummy's who was quite a lot older than Mum and remembered my grandmother,
Yes.
and said that she did this turn. She played the violin and she played the piano really, really, really brilliantly. And she had this turn that she'd do. She'd say, okay, well, now who's this? Tick, tick, tick. And she'd play something on the violin and then go, it's the bank manager. Of course it is. Or, that's the solicitor on Main Street or whatever. And she could sort of do a figure of music that summed people up. And on the night, their honeymoon night in London, my grandfather took her to London for a honeymoon. They went to see the latest show, whatever that would have been, the West End show, and she refused to go to bed. She sat up all night playing in the hotel drawing room, all the hits from the show, and then various others to all the other delighted customers of the hotel.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So that's where you get it from.
That's where I get it from. And so I feel here's the pandemic bookending my life.
Yeah, I know. All our lives. Oh, I know.
If my grandmother had been alive, I always think I'd have had an easier start.
Yes, I think probably you would have. But I'm still an avid believer that we can still call on them to give us a hand in these times. I still do believe that they're there to give us a bit of a nudge and a push every now and then. We'll get through it, and we will, I'm pretty sure, find ways of, okay, touring may not be our way forward anymore, but I do think they'll come up with some sort of halfway house. They've got to. People have got to perform. You can't not. If you were nonchalant all your life about your talents and about how you performed on stage, this will have shook that out of us.
What was great was when I put this singer called Barb Younger. I advise everybody to look at her stuff.
Yes, yeah, we'll have a look.
Great performer. What she does is she sings she doesn't sing, the Endless Cole Porter, Irving Berlin, etc. She sings things like Bowie, Dylan, Leonard Cohen, etc. And she takes a song and sort of strips it back to its bare bones, and then reworks it. And it's electrifying stuff. And you could call her a jazz singer. I don't. Jazz is part of the lexicon of her, part of her, box of tricks. But she's just a consummate musician and a consummate artist. And so I think she's a consummate cabaret singer. So I put her on in my local pub garden, and people were desperate to come and see it. And I sold all the tickets. It was socially distanced. And people said, we didn't know what to expect, but it was fantastic. And we would never have gone to see her. We wouldn't have known how fantastic. She got 2 standing ovations.
Oh my God.
I think people will take risks now to go and see stuff.
I think they will too. Yes.
And so I'm going to put stuff on next summer. I'm going to
And when you know someone has got talent like that, you can strip it back. I mean, what was she? Was she playing to just piano or
just piano? Yeah,
just piano? Yeah.
But I mean, if I don't see stuff, I'll wither. I'll wither.
I
away.
know. I know.
That's a bit of a surprise from
I think your dog has started.
My dog. It's my dog. Ivy.
She's beautiful.
Piper. Ivy. Come on. Come and say that. Nice people watch.
She's such a good girl. What is she? Is she a Jack Russell? Or?
She is. Well, her mother was a Jack Russell, but her father was a Patterdale. So she qualifies.
Look at her.
She's the star of my blog, you know.
Oh, hey, baby girl. Look. Hello. Hello. What's your name?
Piper.
You're such a good girl.
Her name is Maris Piper Desiree Boulanger.
Oh, excuse me. On her papers. On her papers.
And her mother was Chips. And
Oh.
Potato. So she comes from a long line of distinguished tubers.
Oh, very, very good. Very good.
She has a regular picture in my blog. I have an eco blog.
Yes, I've seen your eco blog. Very, very interesting. And you have a political side to you too, don't you? Didn't you run for the Liberal Democrats lately?
I'm such a tedious political. I give me a moment and I'll bang on. So please don't make me now, because then people will find out how really boring I am.
No.
Yeah, I'm a centrist, passionate, militant centrist.
Yes.
Or left of centre. Left of centre.
Left of centre.
And in some ways becoming more and more rabidly left wing as I go. I mean, especially with this government.
And do you feel that's going to be more important to you now as time goes on, particularly the way things are being handled during COVID?
It's nothing to do with COVID. COVID is a sideshow.
Yes.
Brexit is a sideshow.
Yeah, by comparison with this.
All these things are irrelevant. What is relevant to us is the climate catastrophe that is literally around the corner.
Yes.
It is literally around the corner. I have been banging on to my family about this for years. And indeed, my brother said, you're an awful bore, but it's awfully irritating to have to admit you're right.
Yes.
I was a bore. I kept saying it's going to happen. You know, we're burning fossil fuels. We're doing terrible things to the planet. And I mean, I didn't understand how bad some of the things were, but I knew somehow instinctively that human beings were destroying their home. And anyway, about 18 months ago, I started this blog as a result of a suggestion from a girlfriend of mine in America. And it's called Shit You Don't Need. And it's called Shit You Don't Need because we all have stuff we don't need that we're fond of.
Yes.
And, you know, I mean, like your grandmother's tea set or whatever you keep out of, or an old shirt you particularly love. You've got stuff you don't need. But shit you don't need is stuff you really shouldn't have bought in the first place.
Yes.
And you shouldn't spend your money on it, shouldn't be hoodwinked by, because we are hoodwinked by clever advertising and by really by a very, very tricky use of words. I'll give you an example, for instance. I wrote a thing recently on tea bags. We mustn't use tea bags anymore because they are sealed with plastic.
Oh!
Petroleum-based plastic, most of them. And
I
some
did
of them
not know that.
made with plastic. Yeah. I mean, I do the research so that people don't have to. It's all there on the blog, tea bags. And anyway, so I get this email, quite a lot of emails, and a lot of response from people saying, my tea bags are plastic free. And because of the law, the way the law is phrased, they can say it's plastic free. But what it is it's not really, because it's sealed with bioplastics, which are made from cornstarch. Now, bioplastics like that are not compostable, they're biodegradable, so biodegradable won't break down in your compost heap. Compostable will, biodegradable won't. So if you throw stuff away and you're not absolutely certain it's going to go to a proper recycling place, it won't break down and it'll still be plastic, because plastic is plastic.
Right.
And the thing about plastics, and the thing about bioplastics, is that actually there are some which don't break down at all.
God, and people would never think of that. As soon as they hear bio, they think it's going to be degradable.
Yes, so it's biodegradable if you know it's going to go to a facility.
Okay.
If not, then go back to loose tea. It's much better anyway.
Yes.
Not all the dust and the sweepings.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's an education I hadn't realized.
Yeah, I mean, and blue paper. Blue paper is the devil. It's Satan on a roll, because the softer the blue paper, the more likely it is to have come from virgin, ancient hardwood, because that's what makes the softest blue paper.
Oh.
So if you are buying Cushell's super soft aloe vera impregnated bum wipe, you are wiping your bum with the Home of the Grey Wolf, probably.
Oh my God. I go for the cheapest because my septic tank won't handle the really luxurious stuff.
Thank heaven for your septic tank. The best thing we can all do is get a little bidet. You can get bidets that attach themselves to the loop.
Yes, which is very, very popular in, I actually bought 2 of those in Egypt. You can literally attach them. They're like a shower type of thing. And exactly, they're very, very popular in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Very popular.
Heaven, because the Middle East and the Far East and all that, they don't have that tradition of using paper.
Exactly.
If they did, we wouldn't have a tree left on the planet.
Yeah. Isn't it extraordinary? Isn't it just extraordinary?
Yeah.
So we may yet see you in a very political sort of role in the future. Who knows? We might see you out there again in canvassing.
I've asked. I stand as a councillor every time, because just to collect the votes. If you stuck a flag on a blue flag on a monkey here, it would get elected. So my chances of being elected are nil. I am not interested in potholes of the road or dog poo behind the swimming pool or anything like that. I'm not really interested in local politics at all, but I stand out of goodwill to the party I belong to. Don't always vote for it, because there's no chance it'll be elected in our area. But I'm a bit of a political
animal from that.
Yeah, I reserve the right. I think anybody of any intelligence should say, I actually am always going to be a floating voter. I may, believe in liberal Democrat values, liberal values, but sometimes, I voted for Jeremy Corbyn at the last election because the Liberals get something like 6% of the vote in this area. What's the point?
Yeah.
It's a win. And so I vote to try and get the Tories out. I failed.
Yeah. What did you think of Theresa May?
Theresa Dismay.
Yeah. But she's looking good lately. She's looking good by comparison with Boris.
They get worse, don't they?
Oh my God. I couldn't believe what I was. I mean, I lived in the UK for quite some time. I taught in, sixth form, Mr. Chip style schools when I was over there in the early noughties. And I just could not believe what happened in the last 5 years in particular. But also I noticed a big change. In fact, I think I saw an article saying that Liza Pullman had been on one of the trains in 2005 when...
Yes, right.
Well, oddly enough, I was on Harley Street on that day. I walked in. Yeah. I walked in for a checkup on Harley Street. And when I walked in, it was a buzzing street. The whole area was absolutely fine. And I walked out the door to a scene as though all of humanity had been beamed up to another planet. There was nobody around, nobody.
Extraordinary.
And I could not get home. She was obviously trapped in the station, which was only up the road. I could not get back. I was trying to get back to Milton Keynes at the time. I had to stay up all night in London. Could not. There were no trains. There were no taxis. There were no buses. Nothing.
That's right. Liza walked home with smuts all over her face.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. I can imagine. It was absolutely. It was an awful day. An absolutely awful day.
Yes, she still reacts quite badly to loud, sudden noises.
Yes, you would do. I'm surprised. I'd be surprised if she's comfortable about going into the underground anymore, because sometimes it can leave you that way for some years afterwards. But that was a very, very odd, very, very frightening day. But I would say that from around that time, security policies, the whole idea of monitoring people, monitoring their bank accounts as well. I remember because my parents were very ill and I came back to Ireland around then, simply because they were so ill. I wanted to keep my NatWest bank account open, but within 6 months it had just been shut down. I said, why? I've paid off 2 mortgages on this account. You know, what I want to keep my bank account open because I may go back to England to work there. No. Your primary address at the moment is in Ireland. Regardless of where you think you'll be working in future, we're shutting down any accounts that aren't resident here. And that process really started from around the London bombings, this extra security, which I understand. But it was a whole new era.
And I bet all those Chinese businessmen who buy large flats don't undergo the same.
Exactly. It's the wee people like myself.
Yeah.
Who had paid our tax as well and loved living over there. But suddenly that changes the course of your life. When governments decide that they're going to do that, they force your hand.
Yeah,
they force your hand, and sometimes that's not always appropriate. In certain industries, it's not always appropriate, particularly if you're in music as well. You tour, you move around, you have to go from A to B, and you don't necessarily want to shut down your bank account because you might need it.
John and I have talked about going to Ireland because, of course, I've still got an Irish passport. I never had a British one.
Oh, have you? Oh, I wondered about that, Dillie, because sometimes they describe you as English, and sometimes you're described as Irish, and it's.
No.
So you actually have an Irish passport?
100% Celt.
Good woman.
Yes. No, I've never traded on either. I've just said, take me for who I am. I've always said I'm Portsmouth Irish. I'm from Portsmouth, but I'm Irish.
Yes. Portsmouth, wonderful place.
It is.
I love it. I love it.
Place to grow up. And
so where are you now?
Where am I now? I'm in Oxfordshire, little village just north of Bicester.
Oh, I love Oxfordshire. Absolutely wonderful.
Very dull. Pretty villages. But the great thing is,
country.
It's a real village. It's not the Cotswolds. It's a real village. It's got people who live here permanently. It's got, there's a play area and swings, and the kids play there, and we know our neighbours, and it's a proper village.
Lovely.
And it's still got proper rural things.
Wonderful. I was hoping that we might be able to persuade you to give us a bar of a song, but
I managed to make you forget it for a while, didn't I?
You did. Oh, Dillie, it's wonderful having you on the show, and thank you so much for being on. You've been a star as always, and I just hope that we'll get to see you on tour again. You were supposed to have been over here in October.
I know.
In Dunleary.
I know.
It'll happen. It'll happen.
I know. I love that little theatre.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very well run. Yeah.
Yeah, it's they have all kinds of, they have all the big names there, but look, everybody will get back. I'm pretty sure they will, and we'll see you soon, and I can't wait to see you on stage. I really look forward to it.
Thank you.
Positive thinking, eh?
Keep fighting. Oh, I must mention, I promised I would. On November the 4th, I think it's the 4th, I am giving a speech.
Oh,
I'm the
online?
Online. Everything's online now.
Right.
I'm a keynote speaker.
Sure.
For the London South Bank University.
Oh, right. Very good.
Having a 2-day event on sustainability and climate change. So I'm giving us.
You'll put the details of that up on your website, yeah?
Yeah.
All of that. So we'll come back to that too. Yeah. What do you think, just before we go, Dillie, for those who are, I'm not saying conspiracy theorists in the sense that, you know, COVID is we know that COVID is real. But I think that in the long term, there are possibly going to be some direct connections between what we're going through now and the whole climate change issue. In that hopefully we will have more birds, we'll see more bees around, we will see nature trying to recover herself in some ways. I'm really hoping that if we look back on this situation 10 years from now, that there will have been a certain amount of recovery prompted by what we're going through now.
There's a chance, isn't there?
There is.
Chance that we could use this well. That's my point.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, you're in the countryside there. I have noticed here, because I'm in the countryside too, I'm in Drogheda, but I've noticed far more wild foxes coming into view, coming out, getting closer to people, you know, particularly when we had lockdown.
Well, you see, I was in London for a long time and I saw wild foxes all the time. And if you knew how many chickens of ours had been taken by foxes.
Been taken.
I have no sentimentality for foxes.
You're not fond of foxes.
But we had about 60 starlings on the lawn today, because I have not one, but 2 bird tables, and they are replenished every day. And there were so many starlings. And it seems like they've got more starlings this year than ever. And I do have, it's like Clapham Junction for birds there on my lawn, which is great.
I always feel that the birds are a great indicator of what's going on in nature. Because I have birds myself. I actually have, I own birds. But I do keep an eye on those things. And there are changes going on. And my own animals are not behaving normally. They're not behaving the way they usually do. My cats don't want to go out as much. My dogs don't seem to be themselves. I think they know when there's something in the air, when there are big changes going on. I always pay attention to nature.
Yes. What was it? Was it John McGahern said he thought that life was better lived when you don't travel very far, you just get to know the few lanes that you know,
that you live on.
Whatever. I'm paraphrasing horribly, but when you get to know every leaf.
Absolutely, every leaf. Listen, Dillie, thank you so much for being with us today, and I hope your farm flourishes, and I hope we see Fascinating AIDA and yourself back on tour very, very soon.
So do I.
It was great to have you on.
Lovely.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Lovely, lovely to see you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
I press leave now.
You press leave now.